Hello everybody, this is the Wikstrand of Pineapple Express. When that movie came, it became an unexpected, massive hit. And even today, I feel like it still has its fans and it sort of has a sort of almost cult following. When I saw it, I was not too impressed by the damn thing. Pot jokes and stoner jokes and stuff like that's not really my thing, and at the time I wasn't, too impressed with Seth Rogen and his, little comedy group and their efforts. Apart from later I would realize that some of their movies are actually quite enjoyable and actually quite funny, such as, Sausage Party, The Interview, and This Is the End. As I normally do, I did rewatch this movie for the purpose of this review, and I found out that I found it to be moderately funny when I saw it the first time, and when I rewatched it, I found it still to be quite moderately funny. It doesn't move an inch essentially. But what is this movie about? Why was it such a big hit? I don't know why it was such a big hit. It's an pretty okay comedy. It's probably the most purest definition of an okay comedy that I've seen. But that's what we're gonna find out today. This is my review of Pineapple Express. So Dale Denton, played by Seth Rogen, he is a California-based stoner who basically, drives around in his car doing his job, when he's serving people who hasn't, paid their bills or hasn't appeared in court and stuff like that. He smokes joints and he listens to Electric Avenue. Electric Avenue. It's a pretty sweet tune when you're thinking about it, and it fits the movie quite perfectly. He likes his job, fair enough, and he has a talent for, impersonating other people, and he, dresses up a little bit so he can unassumingly, creep up on his victims and, hand them the papers. But his latest job doesn't go exactly according to plan, because he witnesses a murder which also involves a corrupt police officer. Jesus Christ, what is he going to do? He's just a stupid stoner who smokes weed. The only person that he can turn to is Saul Silver, played by James Franco, who is his dealer, and together these two knuckleheads are now on the run from the corrupt cop, a bunch of assassins, and the crime gang that wants to kill them, because they saw, this murder and stuff like that. So are they going to make it out alive? This is essentially what this movie is about. You can really see that, the actors in this movie really liked playing these characters, and Seth Rogen and James Franco has fantastic chemistry together, and, you really believe them, to be friends. And the movie's carefree and relaxed atmosphere is nice, but there is also a lot of setup for jokes that were okay at best, but they weren't anything to write home about. This movie is never boring, this movie is never tedious, and this movie is never offensively bland. It is just that there isn't a lot of stuff happening in this movie. It appears that a lot of stuff is happening in this movie, but it's just very, very okay. They have a couple of pretty okay action sequences actually in this movie, including a very cool car chase. But this is not really an action comedy. This is more of a comedy with some action sparkled in for the fun of it. And outside of Seth Rogen and James Franco, it's not a who's who of, comedic actors. It's who's that? Okay, Danny McBride I do recognize, but I also don't like Danny McBride, so that's not a very big win for that thing. So at least we have a lot of very memorable characters, and some of these, side characters are actually quite funny and actually has quite interesting characters, but they're not used to the best of their abilities. One movie that has affected this movie quite a lot is the movie Burn After Reading. Burn After Reading was a very, very good comedy made by the Coen brothers approximately at the same time as this movie came out. That movie had a bunch of very good actors, including one of the best performances by Brad Pitt ever in that fucking haircut, by the way. And the idea behind it is that there's a lot of people who does a lot of things which other people, misunderstands, and everything turns into chaos. If they would have done that in this movie, I think you could have walked away with a fantastic comedy because, we have these rival gangs and, are these two, working for them, or are they just, trying to, pretend that they are stupid, and people could have, underestimated them, and, this whole thing could have turned into a big old schmoz, but we don't get that. We get some small portions of it, and after Seth Rogen has, dressed up for, serving people who doesn't have paid their MasterCard bills and stuff like that, he never uses that ability again, ever. I felt that was a lot of things left on the table. But as I said, this is a decently okay comedy, and there is nothing here that is, bad, and there is a few small little jokes that works, but I also think that the ending to this was very flat and a big eh. And whenever you have a comedy that crosses the 100-minute mark, your clock is really started to ticking, because in my opinion, a comedy shouldn't actually cross the 90-minute mark, because it's difficult to find enough material to fill a 90-minute movie. Usually you actually run out of stuff to do at around the 60-minute mark. So the shorter the comedy, the better it usually is. This movie almost clocks in at 2 hours. That is absolutely too much. And they even have the audacity of actually having a couple of, side plots and stuff like that is just left on the table. We don't get a resolution to it, and they didn't go anywhere. What was the point of that? What was the point of his girlfriend? What was the point of, the starting of this movie where you see how they discovered, pot and stuff like that? What was the point of that? Couldn't they have done something with that? You could have done something really creative with it, but they chose not to do that. Seth Rogen is completely okay in this movie, but James Franco is the standout. His dim-witted idiot is actually quite amusing and actually has, some of the best lines. And when he does, some of the more physical comedy that he does, it's actually quite good. So do I recommend this movie? Well, I will say this. This is a movie that you will see and you will be quite entertained by it, but it doesn't leave a lasting impression on you. There are probably a lot of people who like this movie a lot more than I did. I prefer, the movies that I mentioned in the beginning. The Interview is great. Sausage Party is one of my favorite animated comedies of all time, and This Is the End is a movie that shouldn't work, but somehow did. I recommend those three movies. I don't necessarily recommend this movie, but if you, catch it on cable, a late night unassumingly, you could do worse. Pineapple Express gets 48 points. This is a very, very okay comedy, okay production value, and there is a lot of very entertaining and quite interesting side characters, but they never get the opportunity to shine. There's too much of focus on our dim-witted slackers. So take that for what it is. So I'll see you next time from, well, so-and-so reviewing, well, such and such. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.